Blake, very nice to meet you in this format. Uh,
Very nice to meet you.
Thanks for doing this. We have a lot of questions to discuss with you, and the reason why we started to why we wanted to create this kind of video is the things which are happening in the world last period that makes many people think of the future, and which becomes more and more obscure. And science fiction writers are the people who are thinking about future worlds more than other profession people. So my first question will be a little bit general. I'd like to hear from you what you ever imagine what can be the world like in the end of 21st century, for example. So this stuff what's happening now.
Yeah. I think that what it kind of comes down to for me is artificial intelligence. I think what level of processing power we continue to evolve and miniaturize will be hugely, it will be a huge impact on what the end of this century looks like. If we make small incremental growths as we have been, obviously it'll look quite different than right now, 80 years from now. But if we are able to make these exponential leaps in processing power and the creation of artificial intelligence, then I think all bets are off. Everything that I've read and researched says that the way that artificial intelligence emerges could happen at the speed of light. One day everything's cool, we're plugging along, and then in the next we have this chain reaction spiraling out, and we have not just artificial intelligence but strong AI. And at that point it becomes, I think, very difficult to predict what happens, because what has this artificial intelligence been, what's its value system? How has it been programmed to see things like the continuation of our species? What is it focused on? And that all will determine what the end of the 21st century looks like. If it looks like, Back to the Future 2, or if it looks like, Rise of the Machines.
It means you see that artificial intelligence can be the solution for our problems. I mean, the global problems today, right?
I believe, artificial intelligence is a tool, and it can be used for incredible good or horrifying apocalyptic scenarios that include the extermination of our species. And the interesting thing is we control, even though once it spirals out of control and it's beyond our control, we will have still brought it into being, and we have this moment right now to decide what ultimate goal are we imbuing artificial intelligence with. And if that ultimate goal, if we're smart, no one's going out of their way to say, hey, we want to create an AI that wipes out humanity. It's not like that. But all of our best intentions could blow up in our face, and we think that we're programming an AI to do a beautiful thing for humanity, but instead the beautiful thing it does for humanity is destroying humanity. And those nuances and subtleties in how we program AI will determine what the world looks like.
Yeah, but you mentioned the word prediction. As science fiction writer, do you always on the working process, you're sitting and writing your novel, are you thinking about the future? Which are you predicting, or just you're trying to see the future, which is useful for you as a composition element or something?
I do think I'm trying to predict a little bit. I'm trying to look at the landscape of technology at the current moment, and then imagine what would happen if we tweaked that a little bit and we go 5 minutes or 10 minutes into the future, and and we sort of play out some of the scenarios, for instance, with gene editing, with AI, which we just talked about, with time travel or memory travel, as I did in recursion. So yeah, there is an element, I think, of I mean, that's what's fun, right? That's the cool thing about science fiction, is it invites us to imagine what the world is becoming.
Well, one historian says, one guy said somewhere in the interview that science fiction genre is most important genre in literature and movies, that just because they are preparing, even if they are not predicting the exact and accurate future or something, they are preparing us for any possibilities of future, any versions of future which can, because I don't know what was about around you, but around me, plenty of people were saying that, we are now living in a post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic movie now when lockdowns started over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this association so strongly just because of this adventurous and beautiful genre of science fiction. But you were talking about artificial intelligence, and there is an ethical dimension which artificial AIs lack, and that's why we are so concerned about AI coming out of the control of us. So what can be the solution for this topic? Because we never trust our so far we don't trust AI, our lives and our future and political system and something like that.
We shouldn't trust. I don't think we should trust it. So the reason that we can't trust it is because the singularity will probably start because some asshole works for Facebook or Twitter or Google is doing something to see if they can do it. Some programmer is doing something because they want to see if they can. And AI is one of the areas of science. I think gene editing is another. I think when anytime you're talking about the manipulation of explosive amounts of energy, atomic bomb, hydrogen bomb, nuclear warfare, these are fields of study where we don't want to be pushing the pedal all the way down to the floor of the car just to see how fast we can go. It needs to be undertaken by thoughtful people who are not just geniuses in coding and machine learning, but who are geniuses when it comes to morality and to ethics. And I don't think that all these people out there who are working in the world of AI necessarily have these ethical and moral concerns. It's a lot of fun to see how big of a technology can you make, how smart can you make something. In terms of solutions, Nick Bostrom wrote an amazing book called Superintelligence, and it's not my idea, but it's his idea, but I think it's very powerful. Philosophy in mind, then we can build AI whose first goal is to do what the best of humans would do, not just it would be a mistake to try to just program an AI to do what I think is the best in the best interest of humanity, because I'm not a super intelligent being. The idea is to program an AI to do what the best of humanity would do, and it's a very tricky line to walk.
You touch a lot of topics in your books. You're interested in parallel worlds also, right? And false memory, which is also for me one of the favorite topic. Let's say the false memory, because I'm a big fan of Philip K. Dick, and he has the type of topics also. Do you have any other topics which you're going to get along or something?
Yeah, I mean, trying to I'm trying to crack. I've looked at the last these sort of the 3 books, starting with Dark Matter, Recursion, and the book I'm working on now is my kind of big. I mean, it's not a trilogy in the sense of the story continuation from each of the same characters, but I do think of it as a trilogy of really big scientific ideas and exploring the big ideas that are sort of in the zeitgeist right now. And with obviously Dark Matter was quantum mechanics, Recursion was, memory and time travel, but beyond that, the technologies that involved electromagnetism and how you use that to literally express neuronal patterns so you can trigger these memories. And the last one, I think, in some ways is the greatest threat, but also very similar to AI. In Summer Frost, of course, I just wrote this novella. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, which was about superintelligence. So the last big piece of scientific discovery for me, and I think it's a greater threat even than superintelligence, is gene editing. It's for me kind of the holy grail of trying to find a way into the story that talks about that. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Do you think that the people, human beings with these kind of consciousness as we have now, and the possibilities which we can get after gene editing, for the danger for each other, for civilization, for
I mean, it's again, it's a very pure example of a technology that has much like AI, that has the power to make us infinitely better. You could, with gene editing, you can cure cancer, you can increase human longevity, we can fix the coral reefs, we can edit trees to put out more to take in more CO2 and put out more oxygen, do all these things. And we can also build smallpox in a lab, and we can build Ebola, and we can build things called a gene drive, which could be released and to target a very selected segment of a population. It's fascinating, and I think the technology of truly mastering. I'm deep in the weeds in the research of this book, and sort of all I think about these days. That I think it feels like we're still a long ways out from really mastering genetic manipulation, but something like the rise of a superintelligence, because it's just so much incredible data to wrap your head around. I mean, if you think of height or just intelligence as an expression of something, like literally 10,000 genes are in this very delicate dance to bring that expression out in a human being. It's not a one-to-one, oh, this is the gene for intelligence, this is the gene for height, this is the gene for muscle density. It's an almost infinite number of permutations, and the sheer processing power that we need to master not just understanding our genome, but to manipulate it is extraordinary. Yeah, and what fascinates me is that it's not like one of these, I think the further we get into the future, in a lot of the sci-fi books that I read and loved growing up, it's like, Jurassic Park was the gene editing book with dinosaurs, or that's the time travel book, that's the quantum mechanics book. But as we get further into the future, you realize that it's all these things weaving together that actually are the breakthroughs. It's the superintelligence that allows you to handle the massive data sets of the human genome that will bring both of these existential threats or beautiful saving technologies into existence.
Question is, I'm really interested what just because about when I'm recalling your ideas, it's very interesting what pushes you to write about those. What's your inspiration usually? Where are those ideas coming from? It can be, for example, the political events around this I don't know, any detail in seeing?
Yeah. I mean, my ideas are, it's not binary. They come from a multitude of, it's a convergence of things. On one sort of, from one perspective, it's my interest in science and in emergent technologies like we've been talking about. But an even bigger piece of that is the character, and like what are the characters who are inside this story? What is their journey? What are they going through that is somehow reflective of what I'm going through as a person? So there's a bit of autobiographical approach to all of my stories. And because it doesn't matter, like you can come up with the coolest sci-fi concept in the world, right? You can come up like the box and dark matter, or the memory share and recursion. Nobody really gives a shit about any of that if they don't care about the characters, and if they're not into whatever the characters are doing, and they're not relating to them. So as much as the science is important, even more important to me is the characters, and making sure that their journey is so relatable and so engrossing for the reader.
So you always put some part of yourself in your character. Yes.
Generally, and sometimes I'm not even aware of it, but it becomes pretty apparent when the book is finished.
I'm very sad about the fact that you were planning to come to Georgia and we could not because of so we're waiting you to meet you in person.
I'm hoping very much to make it in May. We have a couple of things that could be a conflict, some movies and film, but I'm hoping to make it out in May. I really, really want to come to this festival.
We have this one translated. It is Dark Matter by you. Unfortunately, so far we have only this book translated, but I'm going to somehow find to get some other books to read others also, and I'd like to thank you for this great book, because when I was reading this book, it was continuously coming the thought to me that how difficult it could be to write this kind of, because there are plenty of topics which most of the writers just trying not to touch, and this multi-personality or something, it's not quite multi-personality, but you're crossing over your other versions of yourself. And did it take a lot of time to puzzle this plot?
It did. Yeah, it did. It was much harder than I at first thought it was going to be. I wanted to write about, because once I got into the mid part of the book, when they're in the box and they're seeing all these worlds, I just wanted to write about all these worlds forever. And I wanted that journey through the multiverse to just go on and on and on. But I realized that wasn't really satisfying from a narrative standpoint. The real satisfying thing is, yeah, we want the characters to get through the multiverse and to get home so he can see his family and kind of rescue them from what's happening. Also just writing kind of the same person, but from slightly different points of view based on their experiences in history was really, really, really challenging.
So thank you for this book. Thank you for being our guest today. Wish you all the best with your next book and everything, and looking forward to see you in Georgia in person.
Thank you so much. It was totally my pleasure.
Thanks for the time and thank you.
Thank you.